Good day, folks, and welcome to the Anorak Review Show with your host, the Anorak. Another week of Christmas. And I also gave myself a bit of a trim as well. Go figure. Anyway, let's continue this year's holiday season by reviewing something that, again, has remotely nothing to do with Christmas or winter in general. But hey, this album was technically released in December, so there you go. Today, we're looking at another album by Foreigner, whose debut album I tackled back in March, and this album would be released about a decade later. In between those times, we've had quite a number of hit singles across their albums, such as the likes of Hot Blooded, Double Vision, Head Games, Waiting for a Girl Like You, and most famously, I Want to Know What Love Is. However, with this one, despite being certified in the United States alone for selling over 1 million copies, it isn't really talked about as much or as often, nor has any of its singles gained as much airplay and exposure nowadays. So why is it this album fell into the grey limbo between popularity and obscurity? Well, I guess I might find out soon as we jump into Foreigner's 1987 album, Inside Information. The cover is something alright, to say the least, with art direction by Bob Defrin, who also did art direction for Foreigner's previous 2 albums, For An Agent Provocateur, as well as their eponymous debut album, and photography by Roger Corbo. This basically shows a sort of close-up shot of a woman's face, her eye in particular, with this almost intense stare and expression. It almost looks like a still or a screenshot from an old film noir movie from like the 30s or 40s. This, quite honestly, feels more like a cover for a single than for a whole album. But that's how I feel a bit about it. Plus, being a gatefold, it unfolds to unveil the remaining members, as you might see. That album cover aside, let's actually get into the music itself, shall we? We begin the album with Heart Turns to Stone. And boy, is this a song to open an album with Mick Jones, who remains to this day the last original founding member left in the band, playing it out on both guitars and keyboards, as well as the bass played by Rick Wills, who replaced Ed Gagliardi after Double Vision, the drums by Dennis Elliott, and the vocals of Lou Gramm. As for Al Greenwood and the late great Ian MacDonald, they both had left the band after recording Head Games. The lyrics themselves deal with a bit of regret and heartbreak, as a man took a woman for granted despite being in a romantic relationship of sorts together, cheating and lying as her love slowly died. You went too far, and now she's gone. He realizes what he had lost and wishes for her back again. And as that awesome chorus puts it, it's now over and her heart turned to stone. Hopefully, at least not literally, because she probably wouldn't be able to breathe or pump blood properly. Plus, it would be really heavy. The song definitely has that 80s rock feel to it, even with that neat head bop-worthy guitar solo. Another thing to note about this is that Lou sings in a partially second-person perspective, singing about you and her, as if he's communicating directly to you about her, what you had done, and how you may feel about it. Normally, this would have been a first-person kind of thing where he sings as I, trying to bring her back. And while we don't have Ian to graze us with his good old sax, we do have Mark Rivera on backing vocals, who plays saxophone on the Peter Gabriel songs Sledgehammer and Big Time. This is quite honestly one of Foreigner's more underrated tracks in my opinion, and I kinda wished this was made the lead single. With its excellently epic and emotional chorus, this song would most certainly break your heart of stone. Next is Can't Wait. A somewhat slower song, a soft rock ballad of sorts. Lou sings about being on a particular road for a long time, traveling for days, but it seems he's getting nowhere, and he just can't find his way. Sounds like he really needs a GPS. And an actual car. He's got to find his baby, to see that woman, because they need to work things out and he can't do without her. Likely, though not explicitly or intentionally, continuing off the themes of the previous song, where he could be trying to find her so he can apologize to her face to face. Again, probably not intentional, but still interesting to note. And in the chorus, along with a hard riffing guitar from Mick, Lou makes it pretty loud and clear that he can't wait another moment, or another heartbeat, or until midnight. In the second verse, the nights go on forever, and these days he gets no sleep. He can't get no sleep, huh? Must have the same insomnia that Maxi Jazz has. He knows he's going to find her because he's following this star. Unfortunately, that star would end up actually leading him to where Brian of Nazareth was being born, so he found the wrong place and things got a little bit awkward. Near the end, we of course get a pretty nifty guitar solo amongst the repeating of the chorus, even if it goes by rather quickly. This song does remind me a bit of later Magnum, specifically around the similar period of late 80s and early 90s. While not a bad song, it's more or less above average. Decent for what it is, even if it doesn't exactly stick out among the crowd of 80s ballads. Then we have the actual first single of this album, Say You Will. Not to be confused with the Fleetwood Mac album of the same name from 2003, although, if we're lucky, I might cover that album next year. This song managed to reach number 6 in Billboard's Top 100 and even became Foreigner's 4th single to reach number 1 in Billboard's Hot Mainstream Album Rock Tracks after Urgent, Waiting for a Girl Like You, and I Want to Know What Love Is. This does feel a bit like an 80s version of the 70s Cold as Ice, right down to a similar opening where Lou sings the title over minimal instrumentation before it builds up very soon afterwards. Here, the keyboards and guitars are definitely layered atop each other to an extent, as this was back when such guitars and their rockiness were already getting gradually phased out in favour of the synthesizers, for better or worse. After realising that his love had gone in Heart Turns to Stone and trying to find her in Can't Wait, Lou finally catches up to this woman here and begs her to forgive him for his mistakes, wanting her to make up her mind tonight. And he can't get her out of his head, no matter how hard he may try. Now this whole world is gone for dead, 'cause her loving is all he can think about. And it's more than he can dare to think about. Say You Will may be a cheesy 80s pop rock tune, but it's that fun, charming kind of cheese that you can't help but enjoy. Afterwards is the second single, I Don't Want to Live Without You. One of 2 songs in this album to be written solely by Mick Jones himself, while most of the others here were mostly credited to both him and Lou Gramm as a group effort. And according to Classic Rock, Mick considers this to be one of his favourite Foreigner songs. Good for him, I guess. In this soft rock tune, Lou finds himself in a strange situation, and he doesn't know how. That's what happens when you get drunk one night and get a hangover by the next morning. What seemed to be an infatuation is so different now. Instead, it's now an infiltration. He can't get by if they're not together, and he wants her now and forever, likely continuing off from the preceding tracks, thematically at least. The song also features some additional synths from the likes of Tom Bailey of Thompson Twins, as well as Peter John Vettese, who had played with groups and musicians such as Jethro Tull, Bee Gees, Simple Minds, and Julian Lennon. In short, this is another usual love song. It's sweet and passable, if not nothing too special. Side 1 ends with Counting Every Minute, a more traditional rocking track on par with something like Double Vision or Dirty White Boy, with its guitars now able to take full dominance once more. Lyrically, while this seems to discontinue any possible connection to the last 4 songs, this does seem to embody proactiveness, with Lou saying that he's gonna break these chains, set himself free, and turn on the mains, feeling the power inside him. By the power of Grayskull, Lou Gramm has the power. Gonna burn all night and all day, you'll see him coming from miles away. Hooray for Arsonism! And as he repeats throughout most of the chorus, he's counting out every minute, living it and giving it everything he has got, as if he's deciding to make the most of his time, which honestly sounds like a pretty neat motivation and a motivator, so kudos there. And what good groovy rock song like this be complete without a nice guitar solo near the end that almost sounds like it came out of an AC/DC track. It's a pretty decent rocking tune from Foreigner and a good enough one to end out the first half of this album. This definitely, in my opinion, should have been a single from this album. It's that good.